Hello again, everyone. Ambassador Terry with another First Fridays with Ambassador Terry and friends. And I have a friend here and colleague, Todd Cherches. Thanks for joining this month, man.
Thanks for having me, Terry. Always great chatting with you live, as opposed to as if there's any other way but live for us to chat, right? So
that's right. That's right.
It's good to be alive. It's good to be alive so we can have
good
this
to be. Yeah, good to be seen rather than viewed. I love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, this month we're talking about employment, remote working. People I'm seeing in my network and Todd as well are speaking about contracting because they can't hire leadership. Where you get referrals for that. How do you get the message out? Because the virtual world is a different experience than going and hanging out at networking meetings. So, Todd, why don't you bring in some of the things that we just talked about here, and let's go with it.
Yeah, we were talking about I teach leadership at NYU and Columbia in 2 graduate programs, and I'm an executive coach, and I do management leadership training of all types, but based around my book. Little plug for my book, Visual Leadership, which is about how do you get people to see what you're saying, right? How do you get an idea out of your head and into someone else's head? And one of the biggest challenges is connection, right? It's connecting buyers and sellers. It's connecting minds. It's connecting, figuring out how to work together and collaborate on teams. So we're talking about how there are tons of people like us who are out there every day at different companies and speaking at different places about, one of the hottest topics out there today is how do you manage and lead in today's post-pandemic hybrid world, right? People are not 100% back in the office. People are not 100% at home as they were during the pandemic. So it's kind of like, how do we navigate this new world, the work from home versus return to office versus the hybrid model? In the old days, there was MBWA, managing by walking around, right? If you're a manager, you can get up from your desk and stop by people's desks and say, hey, how's your day going? Or pop into my office, or let's go grab some lunch. What's the equivalent of that when people are only in the office 1 or 2 days a week, or you stop by someone's desk and today's the day they're working from home? So I think that's when the challenge is how do we figure out how to navigate these? All the rules have changed, expectations have changed. So I'll leave it there for right now to get your thoughts. But that's, I think, one of the hottest topics that leaders are really wrestling with these days.
Yeah, you and I were talking just before we went on air. I spoke last month in Barcelona to a women's entrepreneurial health and wellness entrepreneurial summit there, where we had 4 continents represented there. It was quite a spread. I was impressed. And from that, someone in the audience heard what I do, how I do it, may have even spoken to me separately, because I spoke to, it was 3 days and I talked to all kinds of people. And out of the blue yesterday, a company in Spain is looking to come to the US, and they reached out to me based on something I said there to someone, and asked me if I wanted a job. I said, well, I'm not looking for a job. However, I will consider having a discussion around a contract or a consulting thing, or where that could be. I'm pretty well networked. Let's talk. Maybe I know someone who could step into that lead position to take over the U.S. expansion. You never know where that is. So we'll be speaking later on today. But that's just one thing. Where did it come from? How does it come from? Yeah. People who want to use their networking skills in the wide networks that we have out there. I've got almost 45,000 right here on LinkedIn, And how do we leverage that? How can we help other people do those kinds of things is a hot topic right now. And I don't think it's going away for a while, right? We've been talking about this. Todd and I first met right after lockdown in a weekly group of thought leaders, and have become very close friends. I've had him on a number of my shows. And this subject just doesn't seem to be going away, right, Todd?
Yeah. We're talking about, I was asking a client, a new client who reached out to me, how did you first hear about me? He said, I don't know. I had your name written on a Post-it on my monitor, and it was sitting here for 6 months. So that's what I was thinking, is like, how can I send out a million Post-its with my name on it, and just tell everyone, stick it on your computer, because 6 months from now or 6 years from now, you may want to call me. So I don't know if that's going to work, but it's funny as we try to think back on, how did you hear about me? How did you meet me? So it's like, that's part of, I don't have as many connections as you, but I'm up to, before the pandemic, I had about 4,000 LinkedIn connections. I'm up to about 13,000 now. So that's just over the last couple of years. And it's about building our network and building our relationships and getting to know each other one-on-one, right? So a lot of times people reach out to me and say, oh, can you introduce me to so-and-so? I see you're connected to them. And I'm like, I don't even know who this person is. So, you try to find, build some, not just quantity, but quality of relationships, and really get to know people, know what their skill sets are, so you can refer them, because there's more things that I don't do that I do, right? So while I specialize in management, leadership, and team building, communication skills, etc., I don't do a lot of I don't do negotiation, I don't do strategy. So it's like, who are your go-to people? I live in New York, and so most of my business is based around New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. There are other people who are more global, right, or on the West Coast, or someone who's more local who could come in and work with them in person. So it's good to have a global network of people that you trust and that you have confidence in, and that you could call upon and say, hey, so-and-so is my go-to person for X. So I think I always talk about, what do you want to be known as the go-to person for, or the guru of, in your field, right? What are your keywords? So when someone says, if someone says international and global, Ambassador Terry has been around the world, right? So so it's good to know what people's specialties are and where their sweet spots are, so you can refer them and they'll pop right into your head, and you can connect people. And I think it's just I always talk about 4 G's: be genuine, be generous, be grateful, and be gracious. So I try to practice those 4 G's, and I try to associate with and collaborate with people who also share those 4G values.
Yeah, absolutely. Be nice to people, because they're going to be nice back to you.
Exactly.
Now, are they going to instantly refer you to someone or anything like that? That leaves to be said. We got a comment here from one of my connections. It's good to reach up, reach out, reach down. Well, that's kind of good. Reach up, reach down. In the networking, some of the best, his best connections were students who became leaders.
That's great. I love
Absolutely. I work with chief executives and government leaders as far as my mentoring goes, but all of them started out at a lot lower level when I first started working to them, and now they're people that are in the limelight globally.
Yeah,
So,
I love that.
yes,
A lot of my students, just as Robert's implying, a lot of my students, I've been teaching for 13 years. Some of them from 8 or 10 years ago have since become clients, because they're in a position of influence, or they'll say, oh, who do I know we need an executive coach, or we want to develop a leadership program. And so it's great that they keep me in mind and reach out to me. So that's very nice.
Yeah, I agree. And both NYU and Columbia, that's high pedigree schools. So, you come out of there with an MBA, you have credibility. And reaching back, you're such a swell person. It's just, you're so nice all the time, that you're going to, your students are going to come back and say, hey, Todd, I'm now the CMO of whatever, and I need XYZ for a colleague. Can I mention your name? Blah, blah, blah. Well, sure. Let's have a discussion, because I might not be able to work with that person, but I might know who does.
Yeah, it's about building trust. It's about building trust, right? Who do you trust? Whose opinions do you value? Right, like I won't say yes to something if it's not my expertise. So they'll trust that I'm the type of person who will say, no, I have no idea what, I'm not the person for that, but I may know someone who is. So it's definitely true.
Yeah. My wife and business partner and I have that same reputation. Go see Terry and Linda, because if they don't know, they know who does.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a beautiful reputation to have. And we honor it and hold it close.
Yes.
Because it was hard to get. And it's it's very easy to lose.
Yes,
so, in this day, we're live all the way around the world. We're in Kenya, we're in Canada, we're all over the place live. And you never know what you say or how you say something or respond to something that immediately connects to somebody who needs to talk to you,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And where do you find these? Yes, there's recruiting firms out there. There's executive recruiting firms. There's, you hire them, they hire you. There's a lot of takes and a lot of different ways for doing that. And ladies and gentlemen, really, it gets down to who do you trust? Get some referrals from people you trust. And if they have a certain recruiting firm or something like that to help you with your hiring, consider that. It's fine to get on and do Bing searches and Google searches and stuff like that, come up with some companies, but what kind of pedigree do they have? Okay. How well do they take care of you? Do they take your monthly investment for a few months before they get you an interview? There's a lot of that. And when I first retired from the U.S. Navy back late last century, I love saying that, Todd. I hired one of those people, one of those firms, and I kept checking in and checking in. They got nothing. They got nothing. After the magic 6 months, all of a sudden I have all of these interviews. Well, just before that, I said, look, I'm not going to stay with you guys. You're not getting me anything. And all of a sudden, boom, 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 I had all these interviews. But the key there, now this is not saying every firm does this. The key was most of those interviews, I had 5 within 2 weeks. All right. And probably 4 of the 5, I wasn't even a good fit for. They're not even on paper, let alone personality that I get with the culture or anything. I shouldn't even have that discussion. So, you got to think about, the pedigree of the people that you talk about. And it really boils down to who's got that great reputation and what are they doing for people off the clock. Yes, it's always good to be a Red Cross volunteer and all of those kinds of things. But what are you doing as a recruiter or a networker or whatever, just to help people out so that you help your own reputation and help some people out who are really struggling, because this is a new world, a new business model that we're really working with, Todd.
Yeah. One of the key words that you just said is fit, because not everyone is the right fit for everyone else or in every situation. So even if someone's interviewing me to be their executive coach, I'll always say, talk to a couple of other people, because, it's about chemistry. It's about relationships. So, while I might be good, you may want someone different. So it's just, at least when you make your decision, it's like, the old saying, an educated consumer is our best customer. I think that goes back to Cy Sims and his men's suits business. But you want people to have confidence in you after saying, I went out, I looked around, and I'm back, and I want to work with you, right? So I'm always happy to say, don't go with the first person that you talk to a few people. And again, it's shopping around, because someone may look perfect on paper, but then when you connect with them, it's the chemistry's not there. So that's good. The word fit that you mentioned is such an important one.
Yeah, I would agree. Bob's got another smart. Smart people don't always go to college. True statement.
And people who go to college aren't always that smart. So it goes both through. So that's a great point. That's
Absolutely. And once in a while, you get that job opportunity that they actually want you to do. You're going to receive the letter, and you're thinking, can I work with these people? Because the 3 people I interviewed with, I just flat out don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
How much money am I willing to take to live in that environment and work in that environment? And it was really hard, because money was very tight when I was first out of the Navy. And I turned down a really good job because the people I talked to were, excuse the French, jerks, right? They were telling me all the things that they're going to not allow, rather than how do we expand? Where do we go forward? And that kind of thing. So, Robert's got a good point there. I do too. I hire brains. I hire people that are smart, work loyal, and work with them. Good points, Robert.
Yeah. Teaching in the HR Master's Program at NYU, one of the mantras is, how do we put the humanity back into human resources, right? So we're focusing on the human side, not the resources side. So treating people not as cogs in the machine, but in the spirit of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. how do you get the best and the most out of people is to treat them in a human and humane way. And one of the challenges, there's no one size fits all way to manage and lead. So you really need to focus on the individual. The old school command and control style doesn't work anymore. It never did, actually. But it's like, how do you develop leaders at every level? I'm sure you've seen that in the Navy, right, Terry? It's like leadership is not just top down, it's bottom up and it's laterally. So it's about getting people. It's not about title or position. It literally is about exemplifying leadership behaviors and treating people in that way. So I think that's a good point to keep.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was very fortunate, even in the Navy, many times in my lifetime, where people saw something in me that I didn't see in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And they started to mentor me and prepare me for the job that they knew I was going to come to. And that was wonderful. And that's where I ended up looking for other people. You kind of pass it forward, you pay forward. Yeah. I started taking care of what I consider the stars, even though sometimes they didn't even work for me, but I knew that they could use just a little bit of help and savvy to bring themselves forward, and that's important. It's very important. And ladies and gentlemen, you're probably resonating with the fact that there's a lot of managers out there who should not be sitting in the desk they're sitting in because they're not ready for that. Yeah. They just happen to have the seniority. Well, give it to Bob. Nothing against Bob's, but give it to Bob because he's earned it. He's been here the longest, blah, blah, blah. And Bob has no clue how to run people.
Yeah.
No clue whatsoever. Does everything wrong. Ends up losing some superstars. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, of the old model, that's how HR become an expense line and not an investment line. Changing that perspective to like what we're talking about with Robert and you and I, to hiring brains, is this person going to bring our company to the future? Mm-hmm. Is this person an investment in our time, energy, and resources for our future of our company?
Yeah,
and the traditional culture, right?
Yeah. The traditional model is so you take the person who's best at something and you make them the manager of, and just because you're a great salesperson doesn't make you a great sales manager, or your best IT person is not necessarily the best leader of other IT professionals, right? So it's a different skill set. And then I remember there was an article in Harvard Business Review a number of years ago where it talks about how most people get their first manager leadership role at like late 20s, early 30s, but they don't, quote, earn the right to go through any kind of leadership development or executive coaching until they're more senior when they're in their 40s. So what you have is a bunch of people in their late 20s and early 30s or going into 40s who've never had a single day of executive coaching, of management leadership development. So they're basically thrown in and expected to sink or swim. And that's not how you develop people to be leaders. Leadership is a skill and it's a talent, but it's also something that can be developed and learned. So we need to invest in the development of our leaders at the earliest possible stages before they get into the position where they can cause a whole lot of trouble and destroy a culture and destroy a team, etc. So that's a big mantra, is getting developing leaders at the sooner rather than later, and unfortunately it's too late in a lot of cases.
Back to this remote hiring and things like that, hybrid examples, we're bringing in some AI. There's some new opportunities there, and like anything, it's brand new. There's a portion of the population that says, oh my God, stay away from them, it's the evil of the world. Well, guess what? About 100 years ago, that's what people were saying about Ford's cars. They're evil. Mm-hmm. You got to be on a horse, all those kinds of things. And then there's a great deal of the population who see the future and said, this is where it is. This is where it's going. And yes, it does take some responsibility, but let's grow up, people. Let's all act like adults and start taking responsibility for making this amazing new concept that we've been talking about for 20, 25 years. AI has been out there playing. Now they have a model that can work, and everybody's all of a sudden very nervous in the service about that.
As the saying goes, robots won't replace people, but it's the people who can use the robots or the technology who will replace those who don't, right? So to put our head in the sand Because I remember, with every technology, people, whether it was, the internet or, whatever it was, every technology, it's scary, right? Because it changes the status quo, it threatens our livelihood, and but we need to learn and grow and adapt. And some people are early adapters and jump right on board and help to drive things. Other people want to kind of take a wait and see attitude. But yeah, it's just it could be friend or foe, but we need to figure out how it's changing things, right? So we need to figure out how it's changing things and what we need to do to adapt or to lead the change going into the future. So, but to ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist and put our heads in the sand is not helping anyone, including ourselves or our teams.
Yeah. Well, my wife and business partner and I was talking to the daughter of a person that we're working with, and she's 21, about to graduate from college, and her mindset, what makes her tick, what motivates her and most of the people around her, is a complete change to the hiring model of the average business firm, right? So it's all about go out and find some Gen Zs and Gen News and all of those guys and bring them in to have some meetings into the company. What do you people think? How motivated you get by XYZ or ZYA or whatever it is? Learn the vernacular of the people you're trying to find so that when you find that brain, you know how to talk to them, because communication is every bit as important as a resume. And every day, a resume is becoming less and less important, okay? Because it's so easy to electronically grab your portable computer and do a full search on them than it is to take the time to read their resume or that of 300 resumes, So that's all part of the discussion, and all of it's valid.
One of the things that you just said, the importance for leaders to listen, right? We don't have all the answers. And in the old days, the old school hierarchy of, you need to be here for X number of years to pay your dues before you're heard. I always talk about 3 V's: visibility, voice, and value. Are you seen? Are you heard? And are you making a contribution? And that could come from any level, bottom up or top down or anywhere in the middle. And I was just reminded as you were talking of the Steve Jobs quote that he said, we don't hire smart people and then tell them so that we could tell them what to do. We hire smart people so that they could tell us what to do, right? So are we doing that? Are we bringing people in and saying, just sit there and do your job and we'll listen to you in a couple of years? Or are we saying, come on in, let's listen to you from the second you walk in the door? So I think just that shift is so important from a leadership perspective, because again, that's a big change. A lot of younger people, we need to hear them and hear what they're thinking and feeling, and not pretend that they need to sit around for 3 or 5 years before they're given a voice or a seat at the table.
Yeah, that person's not going to stay.
Yeah,
they may not make it 3 years because they're going to get bored and they're not respected.
Or 3 months, right? They're going to jump ship immediately if they say I'm not listened to. People get bored much quicker these days, and because everything's moving exponentially faster, right? So if we don't keep up and keep ahead, then we are going to lose good talented people because they're going to get bored, demotivated, feel not listened to or not valued, and they're going to go somewhere or look for somewhere else where they will be.
Absolutely. Bob said we need a global think tank to solve problems like this. That's easily done. I've hosted and co-hosted 3 different lives this year of people from multiple continents coming in and giving the value of their experience and their consulting abilities, and they're world-class thought leaders, And you were a guest of mine on the World Thought Leaders as well, And when you have an ongoing discussion, they were over 2 hours old, ladies and gentlemen. Over the course of 2 hours, we had 20-some people 2 times. And that discussion went all over the place, and it was very meaningful. I have re-listened to both of those twice already, just to reconnect what all was said, because it was so much, and that's all valid. It's all valid, It's where we're at. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is First Fridays with Ambassador Terry and friend, and I do have my friend here, Todd Cherches, Mr. Visual Leadership. That's the name of his book, Todd. And Todd, this was wonderful. I'm so glad that you were able to come in and start the month with me.
Thank you, Terry. It's always great speaking with you.
Yes, you too. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for stopping in. Mr. Robert, thank you for your comments. And continue to leave the comments underneath right here, because I'm going to be around for the next hour or so watching for them and give you my replies as soon as they're there.